Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at some specific examples. Okay, so to start off, it says write the inequality using interval notation and graph on a number line. I'm actually going to do that in reverse order. I'm going to graph on a number line so we can visualize it in order to help us write in interval notation. Okay, so let me draw my number line real quick. All right, so we're looking at -3. Now this says a is less than or equal to -3. All right, since it's less than or equal to, that tells me we're going to have a closed circle. So I'm going to draw in my closed circle real quick. All right, and then since it's less than, I'm going to draw my arrow to the left. Okay, to the left. All right, so I have my number line. Now all I need to do is write this in interval notation. Okay, so I want to look for my smallest number and my largest number. Looking at my number line, I can see that this goes on forever to -infinity. So my smallest number is going to be -infinity. Also on my number line, I can see it stops at -3. So -3 is going to be my largest number. Now, when you're writing in interval notation, you always want to write smallest number, comma, largest number. Okay, smallest to largest. Now all I need to do is either put my parentheses or my brackets. So if I look to my left side, I see I have infinity. And we know anytime we have infinity, it's always going to be parentheses. So I'm going to put my parentheses over here. If you look at the right side, you can see that because we have a closed circle, it means that -3 is included. And since it's included, we're going to use brackets. So this tells us that it goes from -infinity to -3. And -3 is included. And you're done. It's written in interval notation, and we graphed it on a number line. All right, the next example we have, we're going to do the exact same thing. Okay, so we're going to start with our number line. This is actually a compound inequality, so we're going to have two parts. Our first part is at -9. It says b is less than or equal to -9. Since it's less than or equal to, I'm going to have a closed circle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in that closed circle. And since it's less than or equal to -9, it means my arrow is going to go to my left because all of these numbers are less than -9. Now I'm going to look at the second part of my inequality. It says b is greater than 1. Okay, so I'm going to draw in my 1. This one is not or equal to, so that tells me we're going to have an open circle. So I'm going to go ahead and put my open circle. Since it's greater than 1, I'm going to draw my arrow to the right because everything to the right is greater than your number. Okay, so now we have it graphed. All I'm going to do now is use this graph to help me write in interval notation. Again, I'm going to do this piece by piece. So I'm going to look at this first piece. I need my smallest number and my largest number. Since this goes all the way to -infinity, my smallest number is going to be -infinity. Now, if you notice, our line stops here at -9. So -9 is going to be my largest number. Then I just need to fill in with either parentheses or brackets. We know infinity always has parentheses, so I'm going to put my parentheses, and then I'm going to look at my dot, see if it's closed or open. Okay, so since my circle is closed, that means -9 is included, so we're going to use brackets. All right, now I'm going to use the same process for my second part. All right, smallest to largest. If you look at your graph, your smallest number is right here at 1. It starts at 1. So my smallest number is 1. And this time, it goes on forever in the opposite direction. So it goes all the way up until positive infinity. Now all I need are my parentheses and brackets. Since we have an open circle this time, 1 is not included, so we're going to use parentheses. And anytime we have an infinity, we use a parentheses, so on my other side, I have parentheses as well. Now, the only thing we're missing here is the union symbol. I'm just going to put a U in between those, and that tells me that this is the union between these two inequalities. All right. The next example we have says R is greater than -5 and less than or equal to 8. All right. So again, first thing I'm going to do is graph it on a number line. My two values for this inequality are -5 and 8. Okay. I'm going to put those on here. Now this one is a little different. It's not an or inequality, it's an and. Okay, so that tells me it's going to be all the values between -5 and 8. But first, I need to figure out if I'm going to have open circles or closed circles. So if I look at -5, I don't have the or equal to line. So that tells me this is going to be an open circle. If I look at my 8, I do have the or equal to line. So it tells me this is going to be a closed circle. All right. Now, if I read this again, r is greater than -5. We know greater than is this direction. And r is less than or equal to 8. We know less than is this direction. Now, if you notice, when I draw both of those arrows, it's the intersection of these values, okay? And compound inequalities, we're going to learn about soon. But when you have and compound inequality, it's where the two inequalities intersect, where they overlap. So that is just the values in between our 2 points right here. Okay. Now, if you're confused about the and inequality, we are going to learn about that next week. So don't stress too much. We'll go into more detail. But I just wanted to give you a brief overview of it so you would understand interval notation. Okay. Now, all we need to do is write the interval notation. It is a little easier with and inequalities because you only have one part to look at. All right, so just like before, I'm going to find my smallest number and my largest number. Look at your number line. Your smallest number is right there at -5, and your largest number is at +8. Okay, so it goes from -5 to +8. All I need to do now is put my parentheses or bracket. At -5, we have an open circle, so that tells me that we're going to have parentheses right here. If we look at 8, we have a closed circle, so that means we're going to have brackets. We're going to fill in the brackets. And we're done. We wrote it in interval notation, and we graphed it on a number line. Okay, so this problem says write the inequality using interval notation and inequality notation. So it gives us the number line, and it wants us to write it in both notations. So I'm going to go ahead and write in interval notation first, because that's what we've been practicing. So just like always, I'm going to start with my smallest number, and I'm going to find my largest number as well. So if you look at the graph, you can see my smallest number is -5, and my largest number is +5. All I need to do now are fill in my parentheses and brackets. All right. If you look at -5, we have a closed circle, so I'm going to use a bracket. If you look at +5, I also have a closed circle, so I'm going to use a bracket again. And we're done. It's written in interval notation. Okay. Now all I have left is to write it in inequality notation. Now, this one is going to be a little different because we haven't done these compound inequalities. All right. But we're going to do our best. All right, so I'm going to start just like I did with my interval notation. I'm going to find my smallest and my largest numbers. Okay, so we already know our smallest is -5 and our largest is +5. Okay, now I'm going to use x. Now, if you look at it, you can see it's everything less than +5 but greater than -5. All right, so I'm going to say less than +5. But we know it's also equal to, it could be equal to +5, so less than or equal to +5, and greater than -5. But since I'm writing this as one inequality, it's actually going to look backwards, okay? So this does say x is greater than -5, and x is less than or equal to +5. I forgot the equal to, but it's there, okay? Now, you could also write this as two separate inequalities. You could say x is less than or equal to +5, and x is greater than or equal to -5. Okay, but we'll get into the details about compound inequalities next week. The last problem we have says to write the solution set in inequality notation and graph it on a number line. So it's kind of the opposite of what we've been doing. It gives us the interval notation and wants us to write it in inequality notation. All right, so again, just like I've been doing, I'm going to do my number line first. So I look at my first part of this, and it says -infinity to 5. Okay, so I know I'm going to have a point at 5. All right, since this is a bracket, I know I'm going to have a closed circle at 5 because 5 is included. All right, and negative infinity is over here, so that means my arrow is pointing in this direction. Now I'm going to look at the second part, 25 to positive infinity. Okay, so I have 25 over here, and since it's a parentheses this time, I'm just going to put an open circle. Now positive infinity is way over here, so I'm just going to draw my arrow to positive infinity, and now it's graphed. All right. Again, this one is going to be a little different to write because we haven't done compound inequalities yet, but we're going to do our best. Okay, so we're going to look at it piece by piece. This right here tells me that x is less than 5 because it's pointing to the left, and we know everything to the left is less than. So x is less than 5. Since it is a closed circle, it's also going to be equal to. X is less than or equal to 5. But it could also be this other inequality over here. So we're going to say or, and then look at this one. Since it's pointing to the right, that tells us that it's greater than the number, and this number is 25. So x is greater than 25. Now this is an open circle, so we don't put the or equal to line underneath. And now we are done. We wrote it in inequality notation, and we graphed it on the number line.